Will the Detroit Lions ever be good? I mean, ever, like ever in your lifetime, my lifetime, until a black hole swallows this little rock in the stratosphere that's floating around near the sun. Will the Detroit Lions ever be good? Because going into this year, there were a lot of folks, and we more joked about it than took them serious, who thought that they would actually be a legitimate contender in the NFC North, but they have not ever really been a legitimate contender in the NFC North. You have to go back to the NFC Central in 1991 for them to really matter. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Everybody in the offseason with the Dan Campbell stuff, oh, he's got him playing. He's crying on Hard Knocks. He loves his players. I don't know that Dan Campbell can really coach a football team. I think he's a fun guy, but that might be it. And they seem once again a million miles away from being competitive. And what seemed like a pretty good win for the Vikings at the time now seems like just same old Lions W that you can just write down on the schedule. And we were talking about the schedule, how there's not too many easy wins. All of a sudden, that game in Detroit looks like one that you have to have and should very much have. So there are still a few. That one, the game against Indy, that are ones that you should win. But it just blows my mind. Like, I feel like the Detroit Lions will never, ever be good ever again, ever.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think a lot of the preseason hype was down to the fact that they got 3 wins over their last 6 games of the season. But let's look at those 3 wins. The first one came against the Minnesota Vikings in the midst of a death spiral in the final season of Mike Zimmer. So not shocking that they got the win at home by basically duping Cam Dantzler into being Cam Dantzler at the time. Then they get the win against Arizona, which was already going down the drain at that point. DeAndre Hopkins was injured. The relationship, it seems like, between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury had already plummeted, and Call of Duty had just come out, so Kyler Murray was already distracted by that time. And then they get the win the final week of the season by torching the Green Bay Packers for 404 yards. But it was a Packers team that had already locked up a spot in the playoffs. They didn't want to risk any of their guys. It was a Packers team without David Bakhtiari again. And it was a team that had Aaron Rodgers start for half of it and gave the rest of the minutes to Jordan Love. So I'm not really counting that as a win over the actual Green Bay Packers. So that's 3 wins against teams that you might expect them to actually win against despite being winless before that. And then the rest of the games, the losses, were to teams that should be signifiers that this still isn't a very good Detroit Lions football team. They ended the season 3-13-1 because they were a bad football team. They lost and they got blown out by a bad Seattle Seahawks team at the end of last season. They lost to a Falcons and Broncos teams that were also bad. So I think there was just a lot of built-in hype based off the 3 wins to end the season that gave them, it felt like a little bit of momentum going into the second year of Dan Campbell. And maybe the offseason helped a little bit, but I don't know. I think just a lot of people got duped into 3 wins over the last 6 weeks of the season and bought into it maybe a little too much.
Well, so what I will say, though, for Detroit's future is being this bad is a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Silver is not going to come by and relegate you, as he bogusly claimed that he was going to start relegating NBA teams. Sure, pal. That's never going to happen. But it doesn't happen in the NFL either. And when you watch college football on Saturday, I mean, Bryce Young is fantastic. CJ Stroud is really great. I mean, he just tore apart the very good Iowa defense. And I mean, you watch these games, there's 5 or 6 guys again, and they could end up with the pick of the litter, especially if Carolina starts hilariously winning. I mean, Carolina truly, though, has more talent, I think, than what their record was. They just had the most clueless coach. But if like PJ Walker goes full Geno Smith and starts beating teams, I do think they have good talent on defense and they should have been better. So if they start winning here and there and they end up with like 5 or 6 wins, I mean, first of all, congratulations on your 5 or 6 wins. But Detroit, that might not be Detroit. Like, they might win 3 again. They might be that bad and win 3 again. But this time there's a quarterback or 2 or 3 to take at the top, and then they do actually have a chance. And remember, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been hurt, got hurt again today, DeAndre Swift. So they have dealt with some things that they did not have enough depth to really handle. I think DJ Chark was out as well, so they were missing their top 2 receivers. that's going to hurt Jared Goff. But one of the reasons you trade Stafford for Goff is because you're not locked into him long-term. So I don't actually think the answer is that they're going to be bad forever, but I really thought they were going to be more competitive this year. And again, it just sort of speaks to how everything that could go right for the Vikings has gone right. It was like, what's the best case scenario in the division? It's that Detroit is Detroit, and that the Green Bay receiver thing really matters, and that they also can't pass block that well for Aaron Rodgers. And that's exactly what's happened. And then, hey, your schedule all of a sudden looks way easier to start the season than it would have otherwise.